All right, so close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You're on the court, the squeak of sneakers all around you, the crowd is roaring, and you feel that nervous energy right before the tip-off. Now add to that the pressure of college scouts analyzing your every move. That's the world we're diving into today. The journey of Kay Wagner through a summer of competitive club basketball.
Yeah, and you know what's really fascinating about this deep dive? We get to go beyond the game footage, beyond those cold, hard stats. What you've given us is a gold mine. Kay Wagner's own reflections after every single game of the season. It's raw, unfiltered, like we're stepping right into the mind of an athlete pushing for peak performance.
It's true. This isn't just about wins and losses. It's about riding the wave of emotions that come with each game. And she holds nothing back. She talks about the adrenaline of hitting that game-winning shot, and then in the next breath, the frustration of a game where nothing seems to click. It's all there, in her own words.
See, and that's what makes this so insightful. We usually only see the highlight reel, right? But we rarely get a glimpse into the grit and mental toughness it takes to reach that level. These reflections give us that backstage pass to Kay Wagner's internal struggles and victories, and that's where the real lessons are buried.
Absolutely. One thing that really jumped out at me was how often Kay Wagner mentions this flow state, especially after her best games. There's even a game where she says she felt unstoppable driving to the hoop with this incredible confidence. It's almost like she tapped into some hidden power source. So what's the science behind that? Can you really control that feeling of being in the zone?
It's not just some cliche athletes throw around. Flow state is a real psychological state backed by tons of research. It's that feeling of being completely absorbed in what you're doing where everything feels effortless, almost automatic. And you're spot on, Kay Wagner consistently connects this feeling of flow with her most dominant games.
So how'd she get there? Did she mention any specific techniques? I mean, I'd love to bottle that feeling for my next big presentation.
Well, in one reflection, she talks about this feeling of being locked in from the second she stepped onto the court. She even mentions visualizing her plays beforehand. This makes me think she was using techniques, maybe without even realizing it, to prep her mind for peak performance.
Fascinating. So it's not just raw talent. It's about actively cultivating that mental state. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? I mean, she's incredibly hard on herself, sometimes even after a win.
You're right. Kay Wagner shows a remarkable level of self-awareness, but it often comes out as tough self-criticism. Like after one game, she writes, "I messed up so many times, my passes were off, and I totally choked on those free throws. My head wasn't in it." That constant self-analysis can be a double-edged sword, for sure.
Right. Like, how do you find the balance between constructive feedback and just beating yourself up? I know I've been guilty of the latter.
It's something we all struggle with, finding that balance. I think the key is learning to separate your performance from your self-worth. It's about acknowledging mistakes without letting them define you.
It's like she's battling two opponents, the other team and her own inner critic. And it seems like those around her, the coaches, her teammates, even the referees, they all play a part in this mental game too, don't they? I mean, she talks a lot about feeling the weight of their expectations. You're totally right. It's like every time she steps onto that court, it's like facing a panel of judges.
Exactly.
And some of those judges are wearing referee stripes.
Right.
She even mentions feeling like she wasn't getting as much playing time because some of her teammates were already committed to colleges, you know?
That's a really interesting glimpse into the world of competitive youth sports. You know, it's not just about the game itself. It's about navigating those social dynamics, those external pressures.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, how much were those outside factors playing into her self-criticism? Like, was she internalizing the pressure she was feeling from others?
It's a great question, and it seems like something she really struggled with throughout these reflections, you know? There's one entry where she talks about feeling invisible during a game.
Oh, wow.
And there were college scouts there.
Really?
And she writes, "I don't think I even took a shot in the third quarter. I was so worried about messing up in front of them that I completely froze up."
Oof, I felt that. I totally get that fear of messing up when it really matters, you know, in front of important people. It's like your brain just short circuits and you forget how to do the thing you're usually good at.
Exactly. It's that classic performance anxiety paradox. The more we fixate on what's at stake, the harder it is to access our skills, you know, the things we're naturally good at. And that's where being mentally resilient comes into play.
So how do we build that resilience? Because let's face it, we all have those moments, right? That big presentation at work, a job interview, even just a tough conversation. How can we quiet that inner critic and perform at our best when the pressure is on?
Well, I think Kay Wagner actually gives us some hints here. Remember that game where she was unstoppable, driving to the hoop with total confidence?
Oh, yeah, the one where she felt like she was in a video game?
Exactly. And in her reflection, she mentions a key change in her mindset. She said, I stopped thinking about the scouts, the pressure, everything. I just focused on the basket, the ball, the next play.
So she zoned everything out and tapped into that flow state we were talking about.
Exactly. By narrowing her focus to that present moment, she was able to silence those distracting thoughts and just perform naturally. And that's a technique that applies to any high-pressure situation. When we're spiraling into self-doubt, the key is to gently bring our attention back to the task at hand.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like building a muscle, right? The more we practice redirecting our attention, the better we get at silencing that inner critic.
Exactly. And it's not about being relentlessly positive all the time either. Kay Wagner's reflections show us it's okay to acknowledge those negative emotions, to feel frustrated when we miss the shot or have a bad game. The important thing is to not let those emotions take the wheel.
That's huge. Because I think if we try to bottle up those negative thoughts, they just fester and come back even stronger.
Right.
It's like trying to keep a beach ball underwater. It's just going to pop up with more force.
Exactly. And that's where Kay Wagner's self-awareness is so powerful. By acknowledging those negative thoughts, those emotions, she's able to process them in a healthy way and keep them from sidelining her performance.
It's like she's giving us a masterclass in emotional intelligence right alongside all these basketball insights. But it's not just about mastering our inner world, is it? We have to deal with the outside world too, and all those things that impact how we perform, like the expectations from our coaches, our teammates.
Absolutely. And Kay Wagner's experience highlights how important it is to have that support system that encourages growth and resilience.
Right, like her championship game.
Yeah.
Now, that was a masterclass in resilience if I've ever seen one.
It really was.
They played with only 6 players,
Oh, wow.
and they still pulled off the win.
That's amazing.
Talk about digging deep, right?
Yeah.
It's a testament to the power of teamwork, determination, pushing your limits when it really counts.
Absolutely.
And even in that moment of victory, Kay Wagner, she still has that self-awareness. She mentions that their defense was a little shaky, that she could have been mentally stronger, especially when fatigue set in. She doesn't shy away from critiquing herself, even after a win.
And that speaks to a really important point. Self-improvement is a journey, right? It's not about reaching some imaginary finish line of perfection. It's about constantly pushing yourself to be better than you were yesterday. And Kay Wagner, even in the midst of celebrating a championship win, she recognizes that there are always lessons to be learned, areas to work on. It's a process.
It's really something, to see that dedication to growth even when you're already at the top of your game.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder for all of us. There's always room to improve, no matter what we're going after.
Absolutely, and I think that's what makes these reflections from Kay Wagner so valuable. They're like a roadmap for anyone looking to up their game, and not just in sports. It applies to anything.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into the mind of an athlete, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What can we learn from Kay Wagner's journey and apply to our own lives?
I think the biggest takeaway here is the power of self-reflection as a tool for growth. Kay Wagner, she didn't just play basketball, she really thought about her experiences, the good and the bad.
Right.
She analyzed how she played, figured out her strengths, her weaknesses, and she used that knowledge to become a better player.
And it went beyond just analyzing the game, right? I mean, she paid attention to her mindset, her emotions, how things outside her control were affecting her game.
Exactly. She knew that peak performance isn't just about physical skill, but mental toughness, emotional intelligence, the whole package.
So it's like she was journaling, but instead of just writing things down, she was using it to actually learn and improve.
Exactly. And that's something we can all do, no matter what we do. Taking the time to reflect on our experiences, looking for patterns in how we act, and then using what we find to make positive changes.
So to bring it back to our listeners, it's not just about hitting the gym or practicing your pitch. It's also about making time to reflect on those experiences, to really learn from them.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what went well? What could I have done differently? What can I take from this to be better next time?
Love those questions. It's like having a coach inside your head guiding you to your full potential.
That's a great way to put it. And just like for Kay Wagner, our journeys of self-improvement, they never really end.
Right.
It's not about crossing some finish line, but that commitment to always keep growing.
Well said.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, and I really believe Kay Wagner's story has something for everyone, on and off the court. So to our listeners, we encourage you, embrace self-reflection. Use it to unlock your own peak performance in everything you do.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being present, being real with yourself, and using what you learn to keep moving forward.
Beautifully said. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.